All right, so today I'm going to tell you about how to improve your trading using my price momentum oscillator, the PMO. I know for a fact that the PMO is on stockcharts.com, and I believe it is on Thinkorswim, and I believe it is on Optum, I think is what that charting platform is called. So you should be able to access this. The concepts behind the PMO are very similar to what you would use for the PPO, the price percentage oscillator, which is derived from the MACD. So it's very similar. It acts very similarly to the PMO. So if you don't have access to the PMO on your charting platform, you could use the PPO and use the different procedures and analysis that I use with the PMO. So that is where you can find it. My name's Erin Swenlin. I have a bachelor's in mathematics from USC, fight on. I have a master's of science in information resource management. I got that from the Air Force Institute of Technology while I was in the Air Force for 8 years. I have spent over 30 years, actually, I think I need to update this slide because I think it's closer to 35 years now studying the markets. I actually started looking at the market back when I was in high school. My father, Carl Swenlin, who came up with DecisionPoint, was the one who taught me most of what I know over those 30 years. But while I was in high school, I was helping him develop some of his indicators and doing some of the algebra that was involved with it. So I have been involved quite a while. So I am with DecisionPoint.com. So all of the information you're going to get today, you can find some of that on our website. And of course, our subscription products are on our website. I'll talk to you a little bit more about those later. I am the president and chief market analyst of DecisionPoint.com. I recently got a promotion to president. So, all right. Okay, so what is DecisionPoint.com, or really what is DecisionPoint? It was created by my father, Carl Swenlin, in the 1990s. It actually started as an AOL message board, of all things. So he has been involved in the market for quite some time. He still studies it. He still helps me occasionally as well. He helps with the writing of our DP Alert subscription report. Very pivotal contributor to DecisionPoint. DecisionPoint is also what we would call an analysis process. It's a way of looking at the market, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. We have timing models. The PMO is one of them, so it does help you with timing the market. And then we have plenty of market indicators that we came up with. The Swenlin trading oscillators are one of the famous ones, if you will. And then we have just recently come up with the Golden Cross Index and the Silver Cross Index. The Golden Cross Index is, it basically takes how many stocks within an index or a group. It takes, oh goodness, I just started the sentence and now I'm struggling to finish it. So the Swenlin trading oscillator, the Golden Cross Index. So the Golden Cross Index takes all the stocks within an index that have a golden cross and gives us a percentage. The Silver Cross Index, and I've talked about these plenty of times, but I'll probably do another presentation on them again in the future. So you might want to get on my free email list so you can get that presentation when I do it next. The Silver Cross Index, it takes the 20 and 50-day EMAs. If you have a positive crossover of those two EMAs, it's a silver cross. And the Silver Cross Index basically counts up how many stocks have a silver cross within the index and gives us a percentage. So it's a really powerful indicator. I will show you one of those charts if we have time. And then we have our DecisionPoint blogs, our subscription service. And then we just launched the new scan alert system. This system, basically, I will email you at the end of every market day the results of my proprietary scans. And so you'll get pretty much good looking symbols right in your email box every market day. So, you know, it's a great product if you're looking for more symbols that are quality. That's a way to get them, is through our scan alert system. So DecisionPoint analysis process. First of all, we like to keep it simple. We don't use a ton of stuff on our charts. We try to make them very easy to understand. With the PMO, it's very easy to understand and to use. So keep it simple. That's really your best bet with market trading, in my opinion. You want to identify the market bias, and we have a market indicator review that we do. So that's one of the things to pay attention to. We identify trends. In our minds, the most important thing to know about the market is the trend and condition. So we need to know what the trends are, rising, falling, or are they neutral? And then we need to identify the conditions. Are they overbought, oversold? Where is momentum? Is it overbought or oversold? Looking at stochastics, looking at various others. The RSI is pretty much the primary overbought, oversold indicator that we use. And then basically, once you have all this information, act accordingly. Act the way you should based on what you see, and don't talk yourself into something when the conditions aren't ripe or when the trend is not going your direction. If you're trying to go with longs and the trend of the market is moving down, you're going to struggle. There's a good chance that those stocks you select for your portfolio are not going to do well because the trend of the market is going the wrong direction. Now, if the trend is going down, that's when you want to look for your shorts. So it's important to know the trend of the market. It really makes a difference. I've been doing a DecisionPoint Diamonds report where I give out 10 stock and ETF symbols per week. I analyze those. And what I have found is that when the market trend is rising, those are a lot more successful, those longs. But when the market starts to trend lower, the positions start to struggle. So it's really key to understanding the trend of the market, and the conditions are every bit as important. If you're overbought, you need to know what kind of conditions you are in as far as the trend, and you need to determine if you are on thin ice or if you're just going to see overbought conditions persist because you're in a strong bull market. And then we do special studies on sentiment, relative strength. Some of this you'll see in some of our reports. But today, as we do this, I want to concentrate on identifying the conditions. So that's what we'll concentrate on today, because we're going to talk about the PMO. But as I said, if I have time at the end, I'm going to walk you through our DP alert report so you can see the current trend, the current conditions, and how we use the PMO analysis in our reports. So there are a few ground rules when you look at timing signals, and we're going to talk about PMO crossovers, and those are timing signals. So we need to have our ground rules set up. First, you always should look at the chart. I'm a technical analyst, so obviously I'm going to always look at the chart. If you do fundamental analysis, it's still worthwhile to look at the chart. So you may get a crossover buy signal, but you need to look at the chart to see if it's a good signal or not. It might be occurring well below the zero line. It might be coming in overbought conditions. It could be coming in the middle of a trading range. There are certain things you're just not going to want to trade. So we do set up on those scan alert system. We do try to get the best charts that have these setups on them. The timing signals are attention flags. That's why we have to look at the chart. Critical thinking and your timing signals are going to equal success. So you need to pay attention to the critical thinking part. That is where you know your trend and condition. And then the timing signals help you with what to do as far as your portfolio. We have weekly and monthly signals, and they don't go final until the last day of the week and the last day of the month for the monthly charts. So that's something to keep in mind. If we're looking at a PMO crossover sell signal on a weekly chart, we have to wait till Friday before we know whether it's actually going to still be a sell signal. So we wait till the charts go final. And don't settle. There are great setups. There are always great setups. We just have to ferret them out. And we can do that by using the PMO. So let's identify conditions using that price momentum oscillator. And let me tell you about it a little bit. So it's a rate of change ratio. So it's similar to the MACD in that it is rate of change. You can use it for historical comparisons. So you can compare the PMO from, on the monthly chart from back, 10 years ago, and you're still going to be able to see what's going on with the PMO. It's also good for relative strength. So when you get a list of symbols that you're looking for in your portfolio, on stockcharts.com anyway, you can organize by the PMO value. So your highest PMO values come up to the top. So you can compare the PMO value from one stock to an index, to a sector, to whatever it is you want to compare it to. As I said, it's very similar to the MACD in its behavior. It has you're looking for divergences like on the MACD. We have a center line, the zero line. It's a way to identify momentum. The PMO, though, is different to the MACD in construction. It does, the MACD is a difference between two EMAs. The PMO is a lot more complicated in its construction. I will show you the formula, but I won't go too much into the weeds on it. The MACD is unbounded, so that's a big problem for us with the MACD, and one of the reasons we came up with the PMO. You can't do overbought and oversold analysis with the MACD like you can with the PMO. There is no relative strength analysis with the MACD. You can't compare a prior MACD value of a stock and then look at the MACD value of another stock and make some kind of comparison as to which one is stronger. You can't use the MACD for that, whereas you can use the PMO for that. And the historical values, when you move to those weekly and monthly charts on the MACD, are terribly unhelpful. You can't necessarily see what's happened to the indicator. I'm going to show you an example. So here is the S&P. This is a weekly chart, and notice the PMO. You can see all of the various movements of it. You can see when it's overbought, when it's oversold. It's very clear all the way through, whereas with the MACD, you start to lose what it's doing over time. So you can't make any comparisons historically with the MACD. Here is what the PMO is. If you want to take a screenshot and go over this, it's also on stockcharts.com. If you look up the PMO in their chart school, you will find this formula there as well. But it is a little bit complex, and it does do a lot of what the PPO does, but we came up with this before that time. So using the PMO, what can we use it for? Well, we can look at positive and negative crossover signals. That's kind of the primary easy thing to look at. We can look at when we get those reversals in momentum, and that gives us a good idea of whether a stock's going to do well or not do well. We can do those overbought and oversold ranges. But I will say with overbought, especially what we've been going through now with the way the market is moving higher consistently, Teflon bull market that we are in right now, overbought conditions in a bull market like this can persist. You can see overbought readings for some time. Like if you've watched the RSI before, stock will get very overbought, but it's in a really good bull market move and it will stay overbought for days and days. So you have to keep that in mind. And again, this is why you need to know the trend and condition of the market. That is critical. I can't tell you that enough. You can also, with the PMO, and I'm going to show you this in more detail, is you can identify pure strength or pure weakness within a particular move on a chart. This is where I really find the PMO to be extraordinarily helpful. And I will explain how you can determine pure strength and pure weakness on a chart. So we'll look at those in just a moment. It's also a great confirmation indicator. So if you're seeing things going on with price, the PMO can either be telling you something's wrong with price and you need to be careful. If it starts to top, even while price is kind of moving upward. If the PMO is rising, that can confirm the current trend. If the trend is down and the PMO is falling, that's confirmation of the downtrend. So here's a chart of PMO signals. So these are various areas that you would probably want to pay attention to. So here's a sell signal. It occurred in very overbought conditions. So that was a sign that maybe we were going to have some problems. The fact that the PMO turned down and moved down significantly, not vertically, but very close to it, that was a sign of weakness. Now, typically when you see the PMO this high, that's not a bad thing necessarily. And a lot of times you'll get these little PMO bottoms above the signal line well in overbought territory. But again, that's why you need to know the trend and what's going on beforehand. So this one had a great trend. It had a terrible down day, and that triggered this PMO to move lower and give us a crossover sell signal. So we got the sell signal. The question would then be looking at the chart. Well, we're looking at it now. And determining what this drop meant. Did this mean we're just seeing a little bit of weakness seeping in? Not likely with a drop this big. So the PMO in this case was a really good indicator that we were going to see price move down from there. Over here, you can see a PMO top, and notice when it topped, we didn't get the crossover sell signal yet, but just from topping, it really marked a period of time where we could have gotten out earlier if we had wanted to. And then, of course, we got the PMO sell signal that came in later at that time. A confirmation would be these declining tops on price and declining tops on the PMO. So that tells you that you're getting a confirmation of this particular signal. So those are the things you want to look for. Over here is a little different. We're looking at a buy signal. Here's where the PMO turned up. And again, that gave you some really good information and got you in on the move very early. But if you wanted that extra confirmation of the crossover buy signal, you can see that came in at a really good time still to catch this rally that moved all the way up here. And the PMO was confirming that rally all the way up. It never dropped. Even here, it dropped a little bit, but it bottomed above the signal line, and that is a sign of pure strength. when you get a bottom above the signal line. So that was telling us we were probably going to get some follow through to the upside, even though the price was moving lower. So the PMO gave us some pretty good information there. On this case, you can see the PMO turned over. We missed out on some of the decline, but it saved us from all of this decline. This crossover sell signal came in. I've got it marked here, but it's over one more day. So it came in right here on this big decline, and that was a good sign to tell you there were some problems. I don't have what happened to the chart back here, but the PMO was getting ready to go on a buy signal. You can see that price was on its way up. We did have a big down day here that flattened out that PMO a little bit, but ultimately it was still rising. So that would be a confirmation that this rally was likely to continue. The PMO ranges are kind of important because we've been talking about overbought and oversold. So when we look at this chart, this is clearly overbought. I don't think we have any question about that. It's at a very high reading, above 3. It's overbought. Back here, we kind of got oversold, but not really when you look back here. So that was a good sign here that we were getting that turn on the PMO, that bottom, and then the crossover buy signal, and that came in really good right there. And it would have been believable because that bottom came in above the previous bottom. So that's a really good sign. But this over here doesn't really look overbought. It doesn't look overbought at all. So my question would be, is it really overbought? And there's a way that you can check that, and that is by moving your time frame out about 5 to 7 years, and then you get a really good idea of what the PMO range is typically. So you can see the outliers here, but typically it's going to travel within this range. So that top that we saw in the other chart, you can see was actually an overbought reading. So that's one way you can check overbought and oversold with the PMO. So let's talk about finding pure strength. Hang on, let me get a drink of water. All right, so finding pure strength using the PMO. The PMO above the 0 line on a crossover buy signal, that's a sign of pure strength. The PMO flat above the 0 line, this may not make sense, right? But it is true. But if the PMO gets flat above the 0 line, that's a sign of pure strength. The distance from the 0 line also can determine the strength. So if it's well above the 0 line, more than likely you're going to be looking at some pure strength, or at least strength. If the PMO starts to fall from those levels, you're looking at diminishing strength, not necessarily weakness. Pure weakness is found on the chart when the PMO is below the 0 line and on a crossover sell signal. That's a pretty obvious sign of pure weakness. But when the PMO is flat beneath the 0 line, that's also a sign of pure weakness. So you don't want to see a flat PMO below the 0 line. That means you probably have a very consistent decline going on in price. The distance to the 0 line determines how weak it really is. So there's an example I'll show later if I have time on crude oil. Crude oil right now has a very flat PMO, but it's sitting almost right on the 0 line. So that's a sign of neutrality, not pure weakness or pure strength. And it's very clear when you look at the crude oil chart and that trading range it's been in forever, that it would have a very neutral PMO. So let's look at a few examples here of pure weakness and pure strength. And this should give you a really good feel for how this works. After I'm done with this, I'm going to go and we'll look at our DP alert so I can show you some of the PMO analysis that we have in that, because we're not only looking at the PMO, the way it moves, whether it's on a sell signal or not. For example, the PMO topped yesterday on the S&P 500. So that was a sign that, okay, you know, we started to lose that, we were getting that top, and the PMO was starting to feel the pressure and started to move back down toward the zero line. So here's an example, and we're going to talk about this particular window in particular. But I will say that this is my typical default chart, if you will, and I think I kept it pretty simple. I have the RSI on the top, so I can find out if a stock is overbought or oversold. I have the PMO, of course. I also use on-balance volume to give me a sense of what's going on with the volume trends. I love the OBV. I know there's accumulation, distribution, Chaikin, money flow, I think. There's a couple of different versions for volume to follow, but the on-balance volume is such a simple concept. And again, we want to keep things simple. The OBV, on-balance volume, simply takes the volume of the day, and if it was a down day, it subtracts it from the line, and if it was an up day, it adds it to the line, that volume. So you get a really good sense of where volume is going, and in this case, you can see it was confirming this rising trend over here as the OBV was moving higher with price, as it should. Now, if you're seeing that it's not moving up with price, that's a bad sign. So it's a good idea to kind of keep an eye on the OBV. It's not one of my primary indicators, but I think it's a good idea to have. Stochastics are also something I like to include. I don't use it as an overbought or oversold indicator. I like to see the stochastics get above 80, because while they're above 80 or near 80, usually price is doing what you want. So I think it's good to see the stochastics above 80. Over here, you can see they were above 80, right on 80. We were getting this rally here. Notice when stochastics started to drop, so did price. Gave us a really good sign that it was time to get out of that stock. And of course, the PMO was also confirming. It had already given us, or it gave us a crossover sell signal right about here as the stochastics were moving down. And then I like to look at relative strength. I look at the industry group toward the SPY, against the SPY, so I can see if it's in a good group or not. In this case, the group is sort of falling a little bit in relative strength. I look at the stock compared to the S&P. You can see that it was outperforming the S&P. And then I look at the stock to the industry group, because I like to see if the stock is outperforming its industry group. That means it's a leader within the group. So I think that the relative strength is a pretty important piece too, but we are concentrating on the PMO. All right, so here's a PMO flat below the zero line. That is a sign of pure weakness. And sure enough, that's what we were seeing here. Now, over here, we started to get buy signals, all right? But they didn't really turn into much of anything. That's because they're well below the zero line. These signs, when we started to see the PMO move up and got that crossover buy signal, that wasn't necessarily a sign of new strength. That was a sign that weakness was diminishing. And diminishing weakness, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of price movement to the upside when you have that. Here's where we started to see the new strength as the PMO started to get really close to the zero line here. And that was a sign that, okay, we had overcome this level back here. So we knew that we had new strength coming in. And that was a good sign. Obviously, when it got close to the zero line, it was right here. And that would have given us plenty of time to get in on this gap up move. Here is another sign of pure strength, right here, flat above the zero line. but notice it was starting to trend lower. So that was a sign that maybe we might have a problem here. The PMO gave us a sell signal. So again, that was a sign there might be problems. Here's new strength. It's above the 0 line. So we know that that should be strength in some way, shape, or form. It's rising. So again, new strength there. Here's a sign of pure weakness. You can see the PMO is flat below the 0 line, and then it moves even further lower. We got this new crossover buy signal, but again, this is diminishing weakness, not necessarily new strength. And sure enough, we got a good rally, but it failed at that point. Then we started to see new strength because now the PMO is finally at the 0 line. And that's a good sign that maybe we could enter at this point. That would have gotten us in here. It would have given us this bit of rally. The PMO could have gotten us out before we had experienced all of this downtrend because the PMO had topped. So it was already giving us a sign that maybe we were going to see a bit of a decline happen. And there's your new strength above the 0 line. Here is pure strength, flat above the 0 line. And you can see we did get a nice little rise out of price. Back here in all 3 of these cases, I would say we had new strength. The PMO turned up. In this case, we got the crossover buy. So this back here, as the PMO dropped, was diminishing strength. Then we started to see new strength come in with these PMO bottoms. All right. This is, like I was telling you about crude oil, this is where you've got a flat PMO sitting right on the 0 line. That's neutral. That's about as neutral as you can get. And as you can see, price basically didn't do anything during that period. Here's a sign of pure weakness. And you can see the stock price was in decline for most of that period. We got new strength here. Look at that PMO buy signal that came in back here. Would have gotten us in over here. Could have gotten a, looks like a bottom above the signal line there and there. So again, more signs of new strength. This whole little piece here of the PMO told you to get in. And that would have gotten you into that nice big rally. There's a sign of pure strength. PMO mostly flat above the 0 line. As you can see, the rally was continuing. All right, I'm going to talk a bit more about this in a moment. I want to get to a new screen. I don't want that because that's a mess. Let's go here to there. There we go. That's better. I have one of those wide screens, so it makes presentations a little tricky. Make that a little wider for you. Okay, so these are the 2 reports that we have, the DecisionPoint Alert and DecisionPoint Diamonds. The DP Alert, that's where you're going to get that trend and condition of the market. It is key. Think about it this way. Carl was in the Air Force as well. He flew planes. I did not. So he talks a lot of times with the language of a pilot. For example, he says technical analysis is a windsock, not a crystal ball. So it gives you the trend and condition, again, trend and condition of the market. But think of it this way, as you're getting ready to trade, you have a flight plan. And the flight plan, you have to determine what the weather is. You need to know what the wind speed is, especially the wind speed is going to give you the trend of the market, right? The condition is it raining? Is it windy? So all of those you need to know in order to make that determination of whether to get in a stock or not get in a stock. This is key. I can't tell you how much you need to do that. DecisionPoint Diamonds takes it a step further. That's where I give 10 stock and ETF picks per week. You also get more than that, to be honest. I give you runner-ups, stocks that I was kind of made my short list. So you get plenty of stock symbols to look at in DecisionPoint Diamonds. And our subscriptions are right here. This is the new scan alert service. It's only $29 a month to get all those symbols delivered right into your email box. You definitely want to do that. And again, the DP alert, our primary report, is only $50 a month, and we write it every market day. Let's go ahead and look quickly at a few of the charts from yesterday's DP alert. All right, so we talked about the semiconductors. We had a signal change. The 20-day EMA dropped beneath the 50-day EMA for a signal change. We've had so many signal changes, though, with that 20 and 50-day EMA and the 50 and 200-day EMA, or the 20 and 50. And we're getting price moving sideways. The PMO is drifting lower. It's now below the 0 line. So a lot of signs on this chart that there are problems with semiconductors. We don't see anything there that we're going to get a big rally. And on the weekly chart, we're in high level consolidation. It certainly is vulnerable to moving back down to the 200 range or possibly making it back up to new all-time highs. So again, we go through all of what's going on with the SPY. We do a free trading room on Mondays. If you'd like to sign up for that, just go to our home page and you can register. You'll see this ad right here, and you can just click on it and register to join us on Mondays at noon Eastern. It is free and very much a lot of great information there. New highs, new lows. Climax analysis, which I've done presentations on previously. Here's part of our PMO analysis. Right down here, you can see that we're looking at how many PMOs are rising, what percentage. Right now, only a quarter of the index has rising momentum. So there are problems intrinsically with what's going on in the market. At this point, it continues to go up, even though our Swenlin trading oscillators have been moving down. We attribute this to mega cap influence. Here's our other PMO look. We also track how many stocks have a PMO crossover buy signal within the index. And you can see that right now, only 33%, 1/3 of the index hold buy signals on the PMO. This is not a good situation, especially given we're near new highs. So this tells me that maybe the index is going to keep moving higher, but our portfolios are probably struggling right now, even though. And then this is our bias chart. That's the Silver Cross Index I talked about, and the Golden Cross Index, where you can see how many stocks have a Silver Cross within the index and how many have a Golden Cross within the index. Right now, both of those indexes are below their signal line. So we have a bearish bias in the intermediate term and in the long term currently. Look at how participation has been leaking out of the market this whole time, even as price has been moving upward. So there's some weakness under the surface, and we're going to have to pay that piper soon, I think. All right, so that gives you a pretty good idea of the DecisionPoint alert. Let us go back to our presentation if I can find it. I can't find it. Nope, I can't find it. Hang on here. I'll be right with you. Okay. So there we go. Now we're back. Okay, 1 minute left. Here is your special. If you want to save 75% off your first 2 months, not your first month, but your first 2 months of any of our subscriptions, you can use the coupon code DPSAVE75 at checkout. So just use that coupon code at checkout and that will get you 75% off these already very low prices for our subscriptions. And that is all I have for today.